Now I want to talk about how exergonic and endergonic reactions affect the metabolism. And to do that, I want to show you this diagram that you can see in your textbook. Here in this axis, you will have the free energy, and here you have the progress of the reaction. While here you have reactants, you see that you will need to add energy, and you will increase the free energy to have the chemical reaction. So this reaction is not spontaneous because it requires energy. So endergonic reactions absorb energy from its surrounding and is non-spontaneous. So first, absorb energy, they are not spontaneous, and generally how they get this energy from ATP. In an exergonic reaction, and here you have again the free energy in this axis, as you can see here, and here you can see the progress of the reaction. Here you have the reactants, and if you see there is a reduction here, so you are releasing energy, and this is spontaneous, and as a result the delta is here is negative. So while the endergonic reactions require energy, this one will release energy. So remember, an exergonic reaction proceeds with a net release of free energy and is spontaneous. Now I'm going to compare equilibrium and metabolism, and to do that I'm going to again use this closed and open hydroelectric system because they can serve as analogies to study living organisms. And here you have an example of an open one, and here you will have an example of a closed system. Remember, delta G0 means that it's in equilibrium, as we already studied, so there is no work produced here. While on the other hand, in the beginning, there was an asymmetric behavior. This can produce work, and there is a negative delta here, so this will produce some work. So this process can be similar to the process of death in living organisms. When we're not harvesting energy and we reach the equilibrium, is because an organism is not alive anymore. On the other hand, as we said, when living organisms are alive, they are constantly interchanging materials. You are producing work here. As we're performing some work, this delta will be negative. However, this is a very simple example. In the next slide, I will show you that there is not only one hydroelectric system in living organisms. What we have is many hydroelectric systems together. And we will show you that when we study self-respiration or when we study photosynthesis, we have a lot of enzymes that are doing the same thing, collecting and harnessing energy. So to remember, first thing that I want you to remember that living organisms are not in equilibrium. This will look more like a death, like that. So cells in particular are not in equilibrium either. And on the other hand, they are open systems that are experiencing a constant flow of materials. I just want to remind you that, as I said before, a defining feature of life is they are never at equilibrium. The second thing that we talk is here, instead of having one hydroelectric system, we have a multi-step of open hydroelectric system. So here you can see 1, 2, 3, and 4. And all of them, what they are doing is harnessing energy. And in a few slides, I will show you what is a catabolic pathway, because cells are constantly harnessing energy through a series of reactions. So for example, instead of having water, what we're going to play is with energy levels of electrons. And with enzymes, we are going to start collecting energy using these changes in energy levels of electrons. This will happen in photosynthesis or in cellular respiration. In both cases, but instead of having hydroelectric systems, you're going to have here enzymes and proteins. All of these will be proteins. And do you remember this structure here that is rotating? that the water is moving to perform work. In living organisms, we have this protein that, if you see, these look very similar, and it's also rotating. Instead of having water, what we have here is a gradient of hydrogen. Here we have a lot of hydrogen here, and here we have a little. So what it's going to do is, well, it's going to be moved by the hydrogens, and it will harness energy. And this is the way that living organisms are able to harness energy. And we will talk for several lectures in detail about the mechanisms that allow cells to harness this energy. Now we're going to move to just to talk about ATP and how they're able to couple exergonic and endergonic reactions. So, as I said before, ATP is adenosine triphosphate and is the cell's energy shuttle. Is formed by a ribose and an adenine and a triphosphate group. So here you can see the triphosphate group, ribose, and the adenine. Now we're going to talk about the structure of the ATP and the hydrolysis. And to talk about that, I want that you see this schematic. Here you will have the ATP molecule, and here you will see a molecule of lower energy, that is the ATP. And the key to release energy, if you see here at the end there is a release of energy, is because this tail that you see here with three phosphates, you are going to break it. And so you add water and you can break it, and you will now have an inorganic phosphate, but this will release energy. And now the ADP, so the adenosine diphosphate, will be a molecule with a lower state of energy, and this will allow to couple both exergonic and endergonic reaction. So let's recap all the three things that I told you here. First thing that I told you is that the bonds between the phosphate groups and the ATP tail, so remember this tail that I told you here, can be broken by hydrolysis. So here you have the water that is going to break the tails. Second thing that I told you is the energy is released from the ATP when the terminal phosphate bond is broken. And finally, that the release of energy comes from the chemical change to a state of lower free energy.